Do I see it? Do I see it?
I don't know.
I need to share it. I know this. I agree. This is not great radio or whatever video,
It's
but
not
I
radio.
have to share. It's not radio. It's all I know is radio.
No, you're a podcaster now. You're a professional podcaster.
I am, and I'm gonna do some fun videos with you too.
You are, and I'm doing the same thing you are. I'm trying to share to make sure we're share. Yep, we're live. I'm sharing it right now.
All right, I'm sharing it.
Yeah, you share it. I'll share it. Everybody will share it. Real quick, while I'm sharing, because I think I can multitask, we are going to start doing Saturdays at 3:00. Just kind of a end of the week, going into the, you're wrapping up your weekend or getting your weekend going type catching up thing every week. Every week, I say. Don't you say that too?
Yeah, I want to do it. Yeah, absolutely. And I really want to, I had a really valuable YouTube channel. I had a lot of people, I didn't realize like you have to have a certain number of like viewing hours to be able to monetize or anything like that. So I took it all offline because I got like taken off one time. They gave me a strike. And if you get 3 strikes, your channel's gone forever.
Right.
And for me, if the channel was gone forever, I would lose my subscribers, I would lose my content. So I just stopped posting on it. And that was 2 years ago. It was after the Parkland shooting event, whatever. And then when I went to resuscitate the YouTube channel, they said, you need 6,000 viewing hours to do anything with this. So now I have to build back up to 6,000. Oh, like over the past year.
It'll take.
So we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it together.
But let's tell everybody the significance of Saturdays at 3. Everybody's like, what's the big deal? Saturdays at 3.
Well, it's really more of a coincidence, but my WSB show was Saturdays at 3. And that show got taken off the air, I think personally, it's because of my views on coronavirus, my coverage of Event 201. And so, but I had a show for 8.5 years on WSB in Atlanta, which is a huge station. From 3 to 6, I had it every Saturday afternoon. And but now I do the Drive Time News Blast, which is a podcast, a daily podcast with my co-host Binkley, used to be my producer on WSB. And we do that every single day. So now it's just that Saturdays is the only day that I'm free. And then Sunday is family day.
And some of your former radio friends, listeners who have followed you to the podcast may also want to get back in the habit of finding you Saturdays at 3. And I think it's a pretty easy format. You'll find it because this will be up on YouTube as well.
And I feel like there's a little bit of a different vibe because the Drive Time News Blast, which I do with Binkley on the Propaganda Report, that's real deep dive, pulling apart the real meaning of the news. And what I used to do on WSB was more, I think, of what you and your audience is interested in. What are the fundamentals? Let's talk about the Bill of Rights. Is there any hope within the system to restore those? What do they mean? You had a suggestion last week that I do 1 3-minute video for every one of the Bill of Rights, just from my perspective.
Yes.
And, that kind of stuff, was lost when I lost my show. That was one thing people really liked about it, because when your guy is in, they used to talk more about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution when WSB is a really conservative station, when Obama was in office. But once Trump's in there, you don't want to talk about that stuff because he's really no better. I hate to say it, but I'd be the only one. Sorry, but I would be the only one who held anybody's feet to the fire. They always say that, like, elect the Republicans and hold their feet to the fire. It's like, really? Well, you're not holding their feet to the fire.
Just hold one foot to the fire. We want you to hold the other teams. We want you both their feet and hands held to the fire. Our team, just get their 1 foot a little lukewarm. That's what we're wanting.
I don't know. I'm not a compromiser.
Sure you are.
I know, because I don't think we're going to win on this earth. I think it was C.S. Lewis. Was it C.S.
Lewis? I've read the Bible. We're not meant for this earth forever.
Who wrote The Question of Pain? C.S. Lewis? Yeah, I think it was C.S. Lewis. And just I read all his stuff once, and he said, and I didn't get this from the Bible, maybe because I'm Catholic and the Bible is read to me. And
I didn't know you were Catholic. I can't believe I'm a Baptist.
I know Lutherans and Baptists hate us.
No.
But, Anyway, I think I actually have an obligation to do spiritual reading 15 minutes a day, and I neglect that, but I should start doing that. But I just remember, so I'm not saying this is like a religious, knowledge that I have, but C.S. Lewis said, like, this earth is not, we're not to win this earth. So for me, what are we doing here? Are we here to win elections by voting for the lesser of two evils? Or are we as individuals here being judged for our courage? And that's why I feel like you can't hope for your team to win because you don't have a team in this game.
Wow. You're starting our first conversation off on Saturday strong.
So I don't know if it's too
Good
strong for you, but I do
I've told
try
you,
to
look,
stick
on
to the
my podcast, I have pro athletes, I have business folks, I have entertainers, I have friends, interesting, cool adventurers. There's no way you can go that is going to be too much. I had a guy on yesterday, a buddy of mine in Vegas, and he's a sports guy and a political guy, and he started holding up the a calendar that the call girls had given him, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? If I get a strike because I'm talking politics with Monica Perez, that's one thing. If I get a strike because you're throwing up Sally,
it's a badge of honor when you get a strike because of me, because I don't work blue. I don't insult people. I'm not rude. I don't bully. They took me down because they said I was bullying Sheriff Israel in Florida. And they took me down for a show that was broadcast on WSB on the radio. So It was outrageous what they did. It was clearly because I was conflicting with the PSYOP. And 2 weeks later, everybody was after Israel because he was so attackable, but I was just ahead of it, and that was a problem. But yes, I thought if we were to name our little thing here, it would be going too far.
Look,
because I think I go too far for you.
If you went too far for me, I wouldn't do it.
I think that the shock trigger value is pretty high.
Again, I had a guy showing call girls.
Yes, I got you. I actually wouldn't like that myself.
I have a question real quick. A couple quick questions before I jump into your Twitter account, because I've got some stuff that you post on Twitter that I'm going to ask you questions about. First of all, how did your disappearing Patreon party go? How are those going?
Gosh. It's so fun. It's so fun. You have to come. You have to show up. We'll see.
Tell me what it looks like. Tell the listeners or viewers what it is.
So this is what we do. So Binkley and I have a show, the Drive Time News Blast. It's 30 minutes every weekday of the news of the day. If you pay $5 a month, and that tier is probably going to close because it's getting too crowded in these parties. But for now, if you pay $5 a month, you can get 15 extra minutes of daily news. But you also get invited to one or two of these disappearing patron parties every month. And it's on a Friday night, 8:00 Eastern. And everybody, it's 1 hour, 2 cocktails, no record. So we all sit around. People in the beginning, people tell you what they're drinking. Binkley and I are on screen, but the rest is just chat. But we can do what you do, which is like pull up the comments so you can see who's drinking what. And on the side, while we're all talking, me, Binkley, and whatever the chat is up on our screen, the people on the edges are chatting like crazy. I mean, it's really like a cocktail party, and it's super duper fun. I got an email this morning from somebody who was new that just said, this is like a real man, not easily impressed. And he just wrote, wow, that was fun.
Tell everybody how to find that. So then we can move on to the meat.
Yes. Thank you so much for all of my commercial time. JJ Boogie! JJ Boogie is my absolute favorite musician. He is with Arrested Development. I saw them recently. Last concert I went to blew me away. I'm such a fan of funk. They call it hip hop. I kind of feel like it's highly correlated. He has the first gig I've heard in these Corona times. He's at Tucker Brewing in Tucker, Georgia. If people want that, he's not here to get a plug, but I have to plug it. I'm sorry if I'm giving too many plugs, but if you want to talk about my show, I'm at thepropreport.com, and you can find my podcast at Propaganda Report on any of your podcast feeds, and at Patreon if you want to be part of the big fun. It's patreon.com/Propaganda Report.
Okay, well, I have some questions. I have some headlines that me and you're going to go over every Saturday, but the purpose of it, eventually, not starting off, we understand that it'll take time to build a little show up, but we want to get interaction. So there you go. Here's another one.
That's Franny. She was there last night.
There you go. Not sure I can handle it. Probably not. It's okay. Listen. I'm at that age where I know, man. I'm one of my favorite. I'm doing something tonight on my personal page at 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Oh.
It's the best of, like the 5 best comedy movies, the 5 best westerns, the 5 best gangsters, bands, music. It's going to be everybody can just say, or it can be things that you found and discovered during quarantine, like a new TV show. So it's going to be interactive. But one of my favorite quotes from a movie is Clint Eastwood: "A man's got to know his limitations." So there you go.
I don't think that this is beyond your limitations. I have a feeling this is right in your wheelhouse, Clint. Although you'll be out there on the sidelines going, wait, what's wrong with Trump? Nobody likes Trump? What?
Everybody, no, I don't like everything Trump does. I've said this 1,000 times.
I know.
If you take 10 things that Trump says, I might like a few of them, even when he says it poorly. He does not have the best demeanor.
Well, he's not as dumb as he acts like, in my opinion.
None of us are. Hey,
I think that Joan Rivers was going to blow the lid off the fact that he's no dummy, but then she died.
Yeah. You know what is really weird about politics? The closer people get to the fire if they're not elected, but they have all the behind the scenes, they magically
die.
Facebook, Monica said that. Clint didn't.
Now you know that's why I say that we should call our thing going too far.
Or don't kill Clint. That's the other one we can call that. Don't.
I always say you can Atkinson me, just don't Hastings me. So did I tell you that one already? Cheryl Atkinson. Cheryl Atkinson I believe she was a CBS reporter, and she blew the lid off of Operation Fast and Furious, which was a bipartisan gun running operation. Nobody wanted that thing coming up, and nobody ever suffered for it either. I covered that in depth, and that's when I knew there are not two parties. But she was fired. And now she has a more obscure, and kind of Glenn Beck too. He was really the most popular, probably cable news show there ever was, quite possibly. And Obama said, I think Obama actually said it openly, I want someone on Fox taken off the air. And Beck was gone. I think they gave him like $80 million, but then he was just gone. But Michael Hastings, I don't know if he was killed or not, but it's just a symbol to say he was writing a story. He had outed McChrystal for something, and then he was writing a story about how, I think it was called the Smith-Mundt Amendment, where this was in, I think, 2012 or 2013, that the U.S. government was now permitting itself to turn propaganda, like complete lies, inward on the American public. Now they're allowed to absolutely lie, but only outward to other countries. And he was writing about that. And then he ended up he supposedly had been sober for 5 years. So this must have been a first. He crashed into a tree and fiery death ensued. I actually went to the spot where he crashed into the tree.
Why'd you go?
Because it was right near my favorite restaurant, and I happened to be out there.
What's your favorite restaurant? What's the food?
It used to be, and I can't eat gluten anymore. I think it actually broke me. It was Mario Batali's Osteria Mozza in, I think, Highland Park or something in LA. It was just a coincidence I happened to be there. And I was like, hey, wait a second. And my husband was like, yeah, that's the tree.
Hey, what's your black? Here's one for. Ooh, that's not good. Let's make it a little lighter now. You ready for this? Mm-hmm. This is before I get into your tweets. We're going to get into your Twitter account. I don't care.
What do I care?
Well, we only got a few minutes because they turn your air off. Are you ready?
They turned my air off. Yeah, I had to get an office because whatever. It's a long story, but I have time. And once I start sweating, then we stop.
What's your favorite Bill of Rights? Which one?
Oh my gosh, what's the most important one?
In your mind. Protect one that you think has the domino effect of maybe the others, or are they also interwound?
I think, you can't really hold that to me. I would have to do hours of research and really think about it. But
you're not going to do hours of research, though.
I have probably, but I'm not going to do it. So I'm just going to tell you what I think and why. I believe, I want to say first because it's first for a reason, and it's so robust. It covers so much. But I'm going to say the fourth. And that, I believe, is why they took it down first. Because the fourth is how you mount a resistance.
Wow.
The fourth is, actually, I usually have I have actually, right here, I have two constitutions. And I even have this old thing that I think my father.
That's the book I had.
You have
That's.
this?
Oh no,
It
okay,
was
no,
from my father's
no.
bookcase when he died. But yeah,
That looked like my
so
civics book back when I
this
was in school.
like all these lion POSs who have the Constitution in their pocket. I never saw anybody whip it out that looks like that. But let me read you
Yeah.
the Fourth Amendment, just because it's always good to have the exact words. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. You cannot look at anything of anyone unless you have a good reason and you say exactly what you need. And they violate the crap out of that. That's the one that came down first. And it's because they're doing that constant surveillance. Mitch McConnell and his
Didn't
amendment,
they just
Bernie
push that
Sanders,
through?
yes. Well, it was already there, but there was an amendment up to amend the Patriot Act that said it was going to that amended the Patriot Act that was going to say the FBI could not search your internet browsing and search history without a warrant, and that it failed. This has happened before. It always fails by like one vote. They actually let whatever 39 people or something get the bragging rights of voting in favor of liberty, and then somebody doesn't show up. Bernie this time did not show up to bring it home, and so it's the, I guess, the law of the land that they can do that. But they already do so much. They already make sure. And now in the corona times, when every interaction, every communication is forced through a digital pipe, they can monitor and secure everything. So when they started building those fusion centers that had the ability, each one of them, I think there were 12 in construction last time I looked, they each one can store a year, I think, or 100 years, something crazy, like some amount of like terabytes of information of all human communication for years, each one of them. And then when they make voice to text and everything easily searchable, easily containable, all of this stuff gets to where you could never, ever plan a revolution. And this contacts tracing, same thing. They make sure that you're not meeting people quietly, privately to cook up something.
Well, and that is, we talked about this almost a month ago, that because most of communication the last 4 or 5 weeks is all digital. Now the eyes are on it. They funneled it, and now they have it's almost like a conveyor belt. Now they can all stand there and just look as the conversations come through these digital platforms, and they don't need warrants, and they can do it whenever they want.
And they don't have to look. It gets flagged.
Yeah.
I think the contact tracing is against the Fourth Amendment for sure. The way they're going to do it, this is why they put Google up there in the first place, and who knows what the NSA backstory is for Apple. I know, well, anyway, I'm not going to get it derailed, but I would just say that they say, well, nobody made you get an iPhone. Nobody makes you use Google, although
that's true.
They kind of make sure that if you don't have it, you can't function economically. So it's like the mark of the beast thing. You can't be in the marketplace without this stuff. And then that way they get to call it private and not put it up against the restraints of the government, which I don't think it's private. I don't think it can be considered private. Because
so the contact tracing is against the Fourth Amendment, as you said.
I think
right?
so.
Okay.
I think so.
There you go. All right. You ready?
Ready.
Because we got talked about. Now you see what you just did with the Bill of Rights right there. I think you should do that. I did that on purpose. So I saw your energy going.
You are clever. You really have that like Southern thing down where it's just like, oh shucks, ma'am, I'm just a country boy. I don't even know how to think.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
And then all of a sudden you
just did a 3-minute
drawly
thing.
like a fox.
There you go. Hey, so I went and visited so I looked at your Twitter page, and I only look at the ones that you kind of post or you originate. I really don't look at too many of
It's
your
because that's my thought. So I read
Yeah.
a headline, and I only share it. I try only to share it if I have an original thought.
1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 8 in the last 24 hours. So you've been pretty active. You've done pretty good. The first one you put up there is the $3 trillion relief bill is going to struggle. And you said, we wish.
Yeah, it said the doomed
Yeah,
$3 trillion, and it's not. I mean, I think that they're playing a game, doing a dance,
it's going through.
and it's going to go
Yeah,
through. But in order for it to look like it's needed, so people have been trained to look at the stock market as if it's a sign of economic health and not financial manipulation or wealth disparity. So even people have nothing to do with the stock market look at that as a barometer of financial health in this country. So it's amazingly well performing right now. I mean, the high was 29,000 and it's been at 25,000. I mean, that makes no sense at all, except for the possibility that 29,000 was in old money and 25,000 is in new money, that like we have new dollars now that are worth only a fraction, as if there was a currency crisis. So I'm not exactly sure if that's what's happening, but in any case, if she wants that kind of money, that and every single penny of that is debt.
yeah.
So normally you have $1 trillion deficit, which is outrageous. And I lay that at the feet of Trump and every other president ever. $1 trillion a year. This one's going to be, by the end of it, I mean, 6 trillion, right? Like she put 3 trillion on top of already a trillion. And then so maybe it'll be 7 trillion. Insane amounts. And they're not going to get that unless it looks like we're in free fall. So I expect a market panic. And that's when then the Republicans will get some, you know, cosmetic concessions. Oh, maybe Trump will get his payroll tax relief, which the more you disconnect people from the consequences of what they consent to, the more you push it off to future generations who don't have a vote. It's taxation without representation. It's really sick. So I think there should be a balanced budget
So,
always.
but how do you stop that? Tell me what your plan would
Balanced
be.
budget. Balanced
Okay,
budget amendment. Absolutely
but you
100%,
do
no
that's
question.
well, and I've said this
Starting right now.
before.
Don't worry about the debt. Just put a balanced budget amendment in right now. And
Um,
there should be a war chest. So you should not even in an emergency. There should put in it that the government has to pay, if you want. A war chest means something. That's a word that has existed.
But here's the
Why?
issue. Well, here's the issue, though. First of all, propaganda is alive and well because all of a sudden it's not a balanced budget. It's look at all the things we've cut. That's how it's spun. When you start doing a balanced budget,
What do you
when you
mean?
start, well, because I mean, if you take these line items and you can't just keep spending on every line item at willy nilly,
Yeah.
and you have to actually pull back on stuff, you know what it's going to
Just
be.
raise the taxes. I don't want higher taxes, but then you get a tax revolt. What I
Yeah,
don't want is for people to take the money and charge it to their kids. That's disgusting and immoral. So you want those things, you take the taxes and you will get the people who are paying those taxes, which is almost entirely the middle class. Income
yeah.
taxes are not paid by the rich.
Well, the other thing,
Rich people don't make income
the other part of it that I
like
was going to
that.
say, as far as the balanced budget, is not only will it come across as look at the line items that are getting cut now because we're not going to spend as much on my thing as I wanted in the past. Because if you're going to balance the budget, you're going to have things that we just can't spend as much money on as we were spending. That's just the way it's going to have to work. And unless you like to raise your taxes, like you said, raising taxes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the other side of it is whoever initiates this is not going to get reelected. That's the bottom line. I use this analogy all the time with local politics. If you really truly believe there's something wrong in your local political arena and you go and do it, then it's almost like breaking an arm that's healed wrong. You break an arm, it heals wrong. You have to re-break it and set it correctly. So locally, I've got people here that want to run for office and they say, I want to do these 2 or 3 things. And I said, you're going to be horribly unpopular. You're not going to ever get reelected.
Right. But okay.
We have politicians though that are career politicians, so they're not going to
So
do
you're
anything.
arguing for term limits.
Yes, and we've talked about that, and you think
Like
that's
term
good and
limits
bad.
are unconstitutional. You'd have to have an amendment for that, but
That's fine with me. I just think once you
and
get people in there for 40
term
years,
limits are the reason term limits, I think, like it's almost impossible to get that passed is that the people you don't want, it would have to be a national thing because it would have to be a federal, like a constitutional amendment because the people who pass them in their own town, in their own state, have a disadvantage against the career politicians who are there for 30 years in New York. Peter King is going to beat the ass off of your freshman. If you every other year you send a freshman, Yeah,
But that's my
it's
point. It's
messed
a
up.
big
I mean,
machine. It's a giant money making
okay, so
machine.
what you're saying is that, I mean, and I agree with this, the American experiment is dead.
No, I think it needs some tweaking. I don't think the American experiment.
Tweaking,
I don't think the American experiment. I don't think it's ever. I
if
think
you
it's a
can't,
living thing.
these deficits will de facto bankrupt this country. It's over.
Okay. So, and your
So
plan
that's
is
it. And
balanced
I'm just
budget and
saying
raise
there's a
taxes.
balanced budget is better. It's a better plan that I'm not saying to raise taxes. I'm just saying you said there's only one way to get around it. And I'm saying there's actually two ways to get around it. But I'm even saying do it after. Make it a concession. Let the GOP trade it for the next stimulus bill. Say,
I
okay, here's an emergency situation, but, and I think it's too late, but
That's what I
if
was going
you,
to say.
yeah,
I don't
it's
know
too
how we
late.
do that.
But then it's just hopeless. Then the whole thing is hopeless. And you just have to take your ration card and go home.
Well, just so you know, I'm on Team Monica on this. I would love a balanced budget. I would love to operate inside a budget, which most families try to do on a daily basis and they struggle with.
The reason being that we are the most prosperous, efficient, and productive civilization country in the history of mankind. So we have all this technology that the taxpayers paid for because the Department of Defense has been subsidizing it for decades. And why, what could possibly justify deficit spending? That's when you start getting into my world of conspiracy, that I think that the whole point from the beginning has been deficit spending because that's what the bankers want. And then you realize who's running the show.
Well,
And
you're also,
yeah.
I think they match up because you're also buying votes. Because if I'm going to get in to be a politician forever, I'm buying my constituency.
Well, I think what you're buying is consent two ways. You get the vote, but you also get complacency. So we should be rioting right now. I'm not advocating it, but I'm just saying if people were really facing hunger because of this, they would take to the streets. They would say, I don't know anybody who's sick, but I know people who are hungry. So Pelosi says, we're going to send you some money. Shut the fuck up. And then that's what they do. And then once you've bought off the masses, which are cheap, the masses are cheap to buy off. You buy them off with the money of the middle classes.
Right.
And then you've neutralized them. And that's why you have to have something like a balanced budget, which you're not getting. And I guess the way to do it would be actually had a caller once suggest that we should just have a work stoppage, like a universal strike, and no one goes to work at all, zero. They're doing that to us. That just shows you how much surplus production there has been and for how long and how well they can manage without us. I mean, I wonder if it's just a test of their automation.
Yeah. Well, and just to circle back before we go to the next point, once the masses have been given $1,200 and then $600 and then $1,200 or whatever it is, are you going to vote those people out? No.
Well, especially since they're going to say your job is gone forever. Don't you want this to keep coming forever?
If you start sending me $1,200 right now every month,
you're a liberal.
I'm a totally voting for Monica every time. Why? She's sending me, however much money a month. I'm voting for her. Hey, what is a spiritualist anarchist?
Anarchist. Tolstoy
what is
was a spiritualist.
What is it?
So Tolstoy, and I think this is right, he said he was a Christian and he actually gave up. He had a great, I don't know if it was a line of his or whatever, but he said, I just get into this frenzy. I always think, it's absolutely preposterous that there's a God. I mean, there's, you can't see him, you can't touch him. We're just animals like everybody else. And then at other times, I think it's so obvious there's a God. I mean, it's so clear, like we couldn't be here if there weren't a God. Obviously, there's an intelligence behind this. And he said he'd just go back and forth because he's so intellectual. He didn't say because he was, but it's clear that's why. And then what he would do, so then he said, but the only time I felt contented was when I was in the phase of thinking, of course, there's a God. And so he ultimately embraced that and stopped writing straight up literature after that, which was devastating to the intelligentsia of the world. But one of his tenets as a spiritualist after that was, or a spiritual person, was that Christianity is in complete contradiction with the modern state. That the modern state is inherently violent, both domestically and outwardly. It I don't think he said it this way, but I can certainly think of ways that it's highly unchristian to have this monopoly on the use of force and to steal people's money with it and to use that money to kill people in other countries or to start wars so that you can steal their money too. He just said that the foundations of the modern coercive state are incompatible with Christianity. And so he objected to it. But then he took it another step, which I just found out from this interview I did with Bellamy Fitzpatrick, which was super fun. I've been pumping it like crazy because it was just fun. I told you about it last time. He's a green anarchist. But he pointed out that Tolstoy, and that's in that tweet, was against self-defense.
Ooh.
And I have identified self-defense as the only right.
So how do you and him get past that point? Or do you? Is that one of those dead ends? You just go, okay.
I think the right to self-defense is self-evident, which is maybe a cop-out. But if you have value, if God created us with value, then defending that is an act of virtue, I think.
But so I wrote something down while you were talking about this, and I think it plays off what you just said. I think the struggle between your belief in God, and we'll use Christianity as specifically because that's what we're talking about. I think that struggle, along with the struggle and with the world, the spiritual life that we have personally with the world that is created around us, is what it's all about. I mean, if you go back as far back as you can go back and read almost every story in the Bible, and the struggle is what God wants you to do as Monica Perez in your life versus what the world tries to impose on you and how you navigate that line of contention. That is your religion. That's your relationship with God. That's where rubber meets the road. Because if it was easy, if the world around me was 100% like God wanted it, there would really be nothing earned by me being a Christian or believing in God.
Right. There'd be no point in free will or any of the stuff that puts you to the test.
That's it.
I had an analogy I used on Easter this year that my daughter plays soccer and she's not great. She's a bench warmer, but there is a girl on her team who is great, and she's being recruited to an Ivy League soccer team. And the team is good. My daughter's team is good. Sometimes they play people who fight dirty and sometimes whatever. But the girl who's being recruited, there are Ivy League scouts at the game watching her. There is no chance she's ever going to pivot to the dirty teams, dirty practices because she wants her team to win. She's never, ever doing that because all she cares about is what the scout thinks.
Okay. Yeah.
Jesus is my scout.
There you go. Well,
I know it always sounds kind of Bible thumpery to say that stuff. So I kind of think it's funny to say it like that. But and I'm not even that I'm like Tolstoy was. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, come on. And sometimes I'm like, oh, it's so obvious, I don't I live it, but I struggle with it. But I'm just saying that if the way I live, it's as if I care only what the scout thinks. And as my friend John Jasper said, it's not, he's like, yes, you just took 10 minutes to say, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game.
That's very well. I like that.
But I induced it rather than just repeated it.
Well, but like I said, I think the struggle is where we figure out what that relationship looks like between us and God. That is when we are forced with, and the world wants me to do A, my understanding of God in my life requires me to do B. How do I figure that out?
Yes, I feel that's the path. Yes, it's difficult.
Yeah, and I don't think my answer always is going to be Monica's answer.
Well, I deduced another thing, induced, I guess, I don't know. But when 9/11 happened, there were religious people who would say that they were doing what they thought was right, crashing into buildings for their religion, right? Mm-hmm. So, and if they did, how could you really hold them responsible? And I had to really think about it. And I thought that you have to hold them responsible because God gave us a few things, which I think is written in stone, but I had to think, well, how could this work? And I thought he gave us reason, the ability to distinguish right from wrong, which I guess is part of reason, and free will. Mm-hmm. And if you don't use your reason and your ability to discern, then you are held responsible for that also. It's a blindness that he can't hold us responsible for it if it's insurmountable. But I think that the courageous thing, the hard thing, is that you have to face the truths about yourself and how you live, and even if you can't reconcile how you live with your conscience, you have to change how you live. There's an ethical glass ceiling in the world, I think, where it's like what Upton Sinclair maybe said, or John Updike, maybe Sinclair, who said, it's very hard to convince a man of a truth if his paycheck depends on his not understanding it. That's the ethical glass ceiling. And that, I think, is the rubber road thing.
Yeah, I also think there's assholes that hide behind religion and flags.
Oh my gosh! Not just hide, use them as a weapon.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what our media does. They pick out the assholes in the other team they don't like, and they go, look at that,
or they plant them there.
Yeah, there you go.
And I think that the Catholic Church was infiltrated by probably Satanists 800 years ago. I mean, I don't know what goes on in the Vatican, but as my mother always taught me, the church is not the Vatican. The church is the people.
Tune in next Saturday when Monica talks about the Vatican. No,
I haven't really dug into it. I should, though.
Voting absentee on your Twitter account. You said something about voting the absentee ballots. Did you not say something about that? Or did I just make that up?
All I know is that when I used to, I very, very rarely had interviews on my show at WSB, but if I did, it was usually a local activist that was relevant to what was happening in Atlanta and really not covered by anybody else. And Garland Favorito was my favorite guy. He was at Voter GA. You can find him on Twitter at Voter GA. And he was so meticulous about what it takes to have voter integrity. And he actually thought that mail-in ballots, maybe because they're paper and paper ballots are the best way to go with the audit trail and everything, they are. Paper ballots are the best way to go. So what I was saying is, I can't answer your question, but Garland absolutely could. And the devil is always in the details when it comes to voting integrity. Why do you object to them?
I just
mail-in.
No, I don't think it really matters. And here's why I don't think it really matters, because me and you have different levels. Like, I'll think there's more of a conspiracy here, or more of a behind the scenes here. And on this topic, you'll be you, right? On this one, I kind of think if somebody who wants to win, and there is the magic, the deep state behind the man behind the curtain, they're going to figure out how to do it, whether it's a mail-in ballot, whether it's electronic,
I agree with that.
Or whether if you stand up and go, yes, and on TV, they go, no, the mouth doesn't move with the word. They're going to do what they want to do.
You can slow them down, though, I think. I mean, Garland, I would love for us to talk to Garland one day about this.
Bring him on. We can bring guests on with this thing, too.
Right.
The COVID surcharge. I saw this, too. I posted it on my page. At the restaurants, there's a surcharge now on some restaurants. Should I step out of the room?
Have been attacking waitresses and small restaurant owners for years. I've been writing about it for years. The best thing that ever happened to me in my life, and so many women I know who struggle to make ends meet, waitressing was the one way they could really make money. The one way the little guy, I know like 4 out of 5 restaurants go under, but the ones who don't, you have poor, uneducated immigrants really making good in a community, really having the value. They see where the rubber hits the road, and it's just one way for them to prosper outside of the machine, and that's going away.
So the COVID surcharge on the receipts, when you posted about that's the 66 cents on if you spend $12. And
did I say something about that in particular?
Yeah, I thought you did, or maybe I just wrote it down as
you gotta have the tweets, man. The tweets.
I don't have.
You gotta have it, because I write down what the point is, because I don't remember being particularly.
Oh well, maybe I know. I'm looking at it on my page. No, I'm looking at my page. A thing I posted. I just posted, "Are you in favor of the surcharge or not?" So I guess my question when I wrote this down is, "Are you in favor of it or not?" I framed the question poorly.
Right. Well, if a private business wants to identify why their costs are going up in a separate line item, I don't have a problem with that, because I wish they wouldn't say COVID surcharge. I wish they would say lockdown surcharge or COVID policy surcharge, because it's not I'm not saying the virus doesn't exist, but you don't know if it does or not. But we know that the policy is keeping you from making your money. The policy is keeping people from home. The media, the propaganda, that's what's doing it. If you didn't have screens in your life, you would have absolutely no idea that there was an unusual cold going around.
You don't think so? You don't think you would notice that people are...
Do you?
In New York that...
No, not New York. Do you? I'm saying no screens. How do you know about New York? Because something's blasted in your eyes and ears. Do you personally feel like you know people who were impacted not by the policy, but by the illness? In an unusual number of people in your life are severely ill.
No.
Me neither.
You did post something about... You did post something about Purell, though.
Purell. Yeah. So the FDA is supporting lawsuits that say Purell is misrepresenting themselves by saying that they prevent illness by killing germs. Okay. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but germs as a cause of illness is still a theory. Did you know that? It's called germ theory.
No, I didn't know that. That's another
anything
podcast,
that's a theory, it's like the theory of evolution. Anything that's a theory for like 100 years, they had 100 years to prove it and they couldn't. So it doesn't surprise me that Purell cannot prove that it actually prevents diseases. But actually, I think it's more likely that it creates vulnerability to disease. That's what I think. Yeah. But that and also maybe it gets into systems and screws up the biome balance. I don't know. But I just felt like the reason it was being propagandized like that or publicized is that we have to be in the mindset that nothing can help us. That only a vaccine will be there for us. Because if you could just wash your hands, that's what everybody says, just wash your hands and don't touch your face. It's a cold. Maybe it's a killer cold, but it's a cold. That's how you don't get a cold. I never get sick. My kids get sick all the time. I never get sick because, well, who knows why? I don't know why, but.
Maybe it's your tan.
I could be extra healthy because of all the vitamin D I get.
Well, but too also, and I think there's a theory out there. This is where I get to use my medical degree, which I don't have.
Got it.
But I mean, there's a certain amount of bacteria and germs that we're supposed to have on our hands. It's not horrible to be exposed to nature around us because our body can then develop a way to defend it and go,
it's horrible not to be exposed.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a bad thing that, you go roll around in dirt as a kid and you go and you're in the, in the woods and
there was a recent study released that said that, actually digging in the dirt, gardening and stuff, reduces the likelihood of depression. So yeah. I think that it could be a microbial thing.
You got time for a couple? Yeah, we got some time.
Yeah, say hi to David.
David. Oh, hey, what's up, David Guffin? Here, we'll just put him up there because we've done everybody else's.
Yeah.
Hello, Clint. Glad you're alive. Thank you, David. He's a really smart guy too.
Oh, glad you're on live. I thought he said glad you're alive.
No,
glad you're alive, Clint.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Hey, this is not on your tweet. I just have to ask your opinion.
Go for it.
One payer healthcare system, government, just 100% takeover, good or bad?
Talk about bad for your health. Did you ever hear of the Hispanic paradox?
Let's hear it.
It's this fact data. I'm not saying where it comes, what it actually means, but that people who, I think the bottom line is immigrants from Spanish speaking countries. So I guess they come here and they don't speak English, but all different ones. So like all different lifestyles, all different food, culture, background, everything in this country have adjusted for ethnic or racial differences and longevity, live something like 8 years longer than people born in this country. And there are different theories as to why. And one of them is that they can't hear the propaganda, the misinformation we get from the powers that be about health. and that they don't, or maybe that they don't have access to the healthcare system. They don't have this doctor addiction, and that because people get sick from being treated quite often, that maybe they are not getting as sick. That's why, like, there was a strike. Not like, I read about a strike in Spain of doctors. Doctors went on strike, and the death rate plummeted. Now that's because you die when sometimes a surgery is life or death, and
Right.
you might die in the surgery. Otherwise you die a couple months later. I'm not really saying they kill people, but just saying there are paradoxical pieces in there. And I always thought that Obamacare, one payer healthcare, was about keeping people in the health system for the Rockefeller medicine, for that, like a real cronyistically corrupt thing. And also, I've heard this said before, it's for data collection. It is primarily for keeping tabs on people.
I got a buddy who is in a really good ongoing conversation with another guy locally, and they're both super, super smart, very successful business guys. They have businesses that they do business around the country. And I like what he says. It's about access versus quality, because it always gets down to those 2 points with people. Mm-hmm. It's access to healthcare and it's quality of healthcare. And then that's where they diverge, and that's where they start throwing stats at each other. And so anyway, I told him I was going to ask.
Well, I think you have less access to healthcare when more people are on it. You're going to have fewer doctors and more patients.
And they're not going to be incentivized. The doctors are probably not going to be as incentivized as much because
so you're going to have more quality. Like if you're super, super smart, you're going to be an investment banker, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor. What are you going to be? Well, doctors don't make anything. A doctor? Podcaster.
Yeah. Hey, and a local.
I am so in the red on even the WSB thing over the years. I'll never crawl out of this hole. You can thank my husband for the patron of the arts.
We have a local insurance company, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, who now is starting to cover the telemedical thing where the doctor can come on and do the video, which I think is pretty cool.
It seems fine.
Cool. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not big into like regulations anyway. I got to stop saying like. Somebody told me I say like too much. Now it's in my head.
You really listen to people like that, don't you? If there's an echo, if they say the word like, you take that to heart.
Yes, because those things are distracting. That's what makes very good production value. So if you watch Russian TV or European TV versus American TV is very regimented. And I think it's because little things distract. So they have to keep all that. And I don't like that distraction. It draws the eye, as they say. So, but did I literally lose my train of thought?
I think you did, but I was going to ask you another question anyway. So if you want me to I'm going to ask another question. I got it right here. You posted something about NASCAR.
Yes. Instead of having their own names on their cars, they're choosing a healthcare hero. And it's not just like my Filipino friend who's in busting her hump for $10 an hour in a nursing home as an aide. Her name should be on the on a race car. No, it's a healthcare official. The people who are making the policies that are probably increasing the death rate instead of decreasing it. I don't know for sure. I haven't seen the stats, but that's what it looks like it's going to happen, which is why Mitch McConnell wants to put liability protection in the next act.
I just wanted to get your take on NASCAR. I thought you might have become a NASCAR fan.
My dad used to watch NASCAR. He used to watch a lot. All the racing. We'd watch all the racing, dirt bike racing, everything. I watched the Mecum auto auctions. I think that's
I love auto auctions.
The Mecum ones. The one in Pebble Beach. That's the best one.
There's one out in Arizona, I think, or out west. It's the something brother. Oh my God, my dad
Mecum's the one you can watch. Oh, is there another one that's not Mecum?
I think I may be Mecum.
Probably is.
No,
there probably is. The Mecum one is a family one, but they do the big one in Pebble Beach that has like the $4 million Bugattis and stuff.
Yes, my dad watches those. And when I used to be able to go over to his house, we would go. I said, "What would you?" And he is a car nut. I mean, I grew up in the car industry with him, so
Did I tell you about my car?
No, you got a new one.
No, it's an old one. My husband and I just happened to grow up wanting the exact same car.
Okay.
And so we got it. Matching numbers, except for that it spun a bearing.
What is it?
It doesn't have matching
What's
numbers
the
anymore.
car?
It's a 68 Le Mans blue vet. It's convertible. It's
Do you have a picture of it?
I should have a picture of it. I don't.
You
I mean, I
should.
probably have it somewhere, but let me see if I have it. If you want to wait a minute.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'm looking for one too right now. I was going to show you something, but I don't know if I'll be able to show it. My mom and dad. So when I grew up, my mom and dad both worked in the car industry, and my dad had a Torino, and my mom had a GTO, and I would ride home.
A Torino, fun.
And I would ride home from work each day with a different one, and they would race going home. That's how I grew up. They would race.
A GTO. I'd rather have a GTO actually, but the Torinos are pretty sticky.
I've had a Gran Torino. I've had quite a few cars.
The Gran Torino though, that's just a weird one. Did you like it?
Yeah,
it's just so weird.
It's the Starsky and Hutch.
It looks a little Cheech and Chongy. Oh, not with like the open back. I was thinking one that's
like you're talking about the El Camino.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, that one seems weird to me.
I like El Camino.
How do I not have a picture of the damn vet?
I don't know, and I can't find mine, so this is not good podcasting right now.
No, it's not good podcasting. I'm sorry. I think I'm running out of oxygen.
Is your air off? Is your air off yet?
It's not quite off, but it's.
All right, you got time for one or two more?
Yeah, sure. For sure.
Truckers are in DC.
I know. I come from a long line of truckers. My dad was a trucker. My brother's truckers, and they are. I didn't understand what they were honking about, but they have really restrictive rules. And I feel like I could be wrong, but my hunch is that the unions like the rules. Franny will know. If the unions will like the rules that restrict all trucking so that they don't get outcompeted by non-union shops. But my guess is that if there's a bunch of truckers in DC, the unions are behind it. So I don't know what's really going on. I couldn't tell if they were there protesting for laws, like the motor coach industry is there so that they can get money from the government. They're not protesting the lockdown. They're they want money. And that makes me sick. But I can't tell what the truckers are doing.
Part of your post, and I think it was about
Europe. People started yelling at me.
No, it says protest not for liberty, but for priority.
Yes.
And I like the way you put that. And that's how I keep notes, is just headlines. I like that. We're not protesting and insert organization here. It's not just truckers.
Because government, if you read Our Enemy, the State by Albert J. Nock, he points out how government...
You can keep going. I just brought that up.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I hate to be unprofessional, Clint. I pride myself in my professionalism. Albert J. Nock. Thank you. No, it's not. Albert J. Nock said he distinguishes between government and the state. So a tribe can have a government and everyone can kind of volunteer to be a part of that or put a fence around their little tent or whatever. I don't know. But the state is there solely to distribute privilege by exploiting you and your rights and property. So if you wanted liberty, you would want a smaller government. But if you face the true nature of the state, all you really can go to the state for is to have to be on the list that gets stuff net rather than the list that is exploited. So it piggybacks on another concept. I forget who was responsible for it, that there are two ways of getting wealth. One is the political means and one is the economic means. Have you ever heard this distinction?
No, I may not.
You can figure out what it is. The economic means is actually producing something. The political means, and you can tell both in politics and when they call an organization, it's very political. What is a very political place to work? It's a place where people get credit for what you do by chatting up their superiors. So the political means is they get paid more for taking credit for your work. And that's what government is. It's that they take your work and they give it to somebody else and themselves.
I feel like we're approaching the Game of Thrones, where they make the announcement, Clint Powell, you now can come up to the throne and make your request. I would like a concession on my taxes, please.
Yeah, of course. That's what licenses are for. So now when you see in the Corona times, they can take your license away. Then you realize that it was never about making sure you don't get a bad haircut. It was always about controlling the industry so that they could bestow the privilege and exploit the people.
I've got a local friend here who is a politician, but she's super. She's just one of the most researched people I've ever met. She
Oh,
is super
really?
smart. You would love her.
She's a podcaster? What?
No, 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 no.
No, what? What's
But
her
she has a hairdresser. She owns
what's
a
her angle?
hairdresser.
Mm-hmm.
But she's a politician and she's a
Oh, she's
school
a
board
politician.
member. But she had this post, and again, very well researched. But she has a very good question: how come she couldn't open her business, but the sex shop that was a mile down the road kept theirs open because they had vitamins? They had CBD oil and some vitamins, so they were considered an essential business. They stayed open almost most of the time, whereas her hairdressing, her beautician shop was shut down. And it was one of those questions, and it was a
Who has a
loophole.
lobby? That's another thing. Like, I
Yeah.
just feel like the restaurant consortium must be, and for years, lobbying so hard for things like taking away the exemption for minimum wage to waitresses. They want to take away that exemption. It's not good. I feel like the places with the national lobbies, the industries with the national lobbies are get benefits for their own. But I don't know about the sex shop.
No, but she was just, I guess my
Plus, they
point on that
close down
was,
churches and leave sex shops open. I mean, some of it's psychological.
oh, yeah, well, I
They
guess
want you to look bad and feel bad. They want you to feel the pain. If you could still get, I don't know.
I think her point was it was just seemed very arbitrary. It just seemed,
Yeah, they shouldn't
yeah,
have that power. Let's
yeah.
point to a law. There's a law. There's something that says if they make up some story about everybody getting sick, then they get to have unlimited power. Well, then they're going to make up a story about everybody getting sick. I mean, you can't have those moral hazards embedded in your legal system.
All right, last thing I'm going to bring up, and then me and you'll chit chat and close it up before you start sweating with the air
I
conditioner.
know. I think I am. So my hair is getting frizzier as we sit here.
We won't take, I promise we're almost done. So I've got a good buddy of mine here that is a financial planner. He used to be a coach in college football at the University of Tennessee, which I'm an Alabama fan, but he's a big college. But he posted something, and I shared it on my radio page. I'm just going to read it to you because you're an economist. You like economy, and he's pretty smart. Okay, well, here we go. He said, here's a heads up for all you economic junkies. Let me start over. Here's a heads up for all you economic junkies. A one-liner out of the Federal Reserve report from yesterday. Our concern is that while the billions of dollars that we are supplying to keep credit or liquidity from drying up, the financial system could be hit with a wave of corporate or individual bankruptcies that could raise solvency concerns. The Fed can handle credit issues, but solvency is a vastly different problem. A couple more months of shutdowns, and you will all become experts regarding the word solvency. I can promise you this. If they enter the territory, you won't be able to buy a mask or hand sanitizer that protects you from those kind of repercussions.
Is he not pointing out that the Fed is buying corporate debt?
I think what he's saying is the solvency is this issue.
He likes it.
No, he does not like it at all.
He doesn't like what the Fed is doing.
No.
So my opinion of what's actually happening here, and the reason I'm confident, I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm not saying I know it's true, but I am not revisiting the issue because I'm pretty confident. I was starting to talk about this late last year, that we just had a weird situation with extremely low interest rates at what looks like the end of an expansion, which means demand's going to level off when these businesses have tremendous amount of debt because they've been lured into it by these super low rates. And then there was some articles about like a $10 trillion corporate debt bubble, and the low rates were from the 2008 era. So it just never really shook out the system. So I was afraid that they would have a lot of bankruptcies and unemployment and stuff. And I think that what somebody tweeted to me perfectly put it, they did a controlled demolition. So they made this panic. They did all that so that they could bail it out, because we would never have allowed the bailout if we didn't think it was not the fault of the policymakers over the past 10, 12 years. So I think that they're keeping afloat a lot of the companies that would have gone bankrupt so that they can keep the hierarchy in place. It gives them an opportunity to let go bankrupt the ones that they don't like, not friends of the government.
Like JCPenney, are they gone?
Yeah, JCPenney was on the way out anyway, though.
I know.
So, but
I grew up with JCPenney. So
yeah, but some of them, they get to pick winners and losers. But what they do is they actually make the problem worse in two ways. I'll try to make it quick. One is by continuing to subsidize borrowing by firms that really couldn't make it in the free market, you continue to encourage bad investment below the returns that are below what the risk should demand, so that regular investors, people want to retire and stuff, they're taking tremendous risks by buying bonds relative to the return. So then they go to equity and then they pump up that market. They're just, the regular guy is not getting the returns they should for the risk because the Fed is subsidizing returns, driving down returns. And then the other thing is, when these companies look to the government for funding, not to the customers, not to the market, for the financial markets, they then just know they have to please the government. So if the government has policies that they want these people to implement that are of a political nature, a social engineering nature, the companies are going to do it without question. And then you have, really, it's just fascism at that point.
We've talked about it with the people and with companies. Bottom line is, if the government is giving you the money, then they're buying either your vote or your compromise or your concessions. That's basically what it is. If you want our money, they do it with the school systems too,
or
in the
your
states.
compliance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Do you want this money? Yeah, then do these 3 things. Well, we don't want to do those. But you don't get the money. We'll give it
But
to
then you
your.
don't get any money because you're not allowed to work.
There
You
go.
know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's just beyond, you can't not take the money. It's just, it's a corruption that is so profound. It's biblical.
Why do you like Twitter so much?
I used to like Facebook, but people on Facebook there were so many like trolls, and I could tell because they would say something mean and I would answer it. And then they would say something mean and I'd answer it. If I stopped answering it, they stopped saying things. They just wanted to make sure that the mean, nasty, discrediting, unfair comment was on the top. These aren't people who come to follow me from me. It was corrupting the whole thing. And I got less of that on Twitter. And then I kind of got the hang of Twitter. And I guess because it's so fast, because it's short, I can just get so much. I have like 30,000 tweets.
You have a ton of tweets.
That's a lot. And it's probably, you know what I think was really the main thing is that I found Facebook a little difficult to use on the phone.
See, and I find Facebook way easier. I don't understand Twitter
phone?
yet.
I think Twitter. I wouldn't let it look at my stuff. You know, it asks you, can we have complete access to your life? And I said no. And then I just couldn't open anything anymore.
Well, how about Twitter? Doesn't it ask for full access to your life too?
Well, it might take it, but it didn't ask for it. So yeah, I didn't get a chance to say no.
All right, and let's talk about this. Your YouTube. You're firing your YouTube back up. We talked about it at the beginning.
I don't know. I mean, I'm doing it, but I don't know. Like, I feel like
I'm going to send you the link.
You have the same problem. A lot of like trolling comments and stuff that hurt my feelings.
Don't read them. I don't understand why you read them. I don't understand why you read them.
Because sometimes there are valid comments. Like I say, like.
Okay, so here's what I've learned.
Don't tell me how old I am, but I should not be saying like.
29. You're 29.
Don't even say something ridiculous, because then it looks so ridiculous that people be like, that's ridiculous.
But here's what I've learned about
no numbers.
Those little tails, those little, like when you say likes or uhs. Yes, we need to be reminded of them. And I have people, because I'm in the radio, they tell me I move too much. I do all these things. I am who I am. You should be who you are. Because as soon as you stop saying the word like, I'm not saying you shouldn't work on your craft. I'm saying if you really say, okay, I'm not going to say like so much, what you'll end up doing is going, okay, I didn't say like at all, but I said the word absolutely 63 times. You'll find something else.
I used to say and like, and maybe I still a lot. That was Freudian, and maybe I still do. But anyway, it's not a big deal. If I didn't think it was valid, I wouldn't think about it too hard. But I'm just saying that's why I will read the comments, because 9 out of 10 of the negatives I don't care about, and 1 in 10 is valid. And
That's
then
smart.
The trolls are kind of obnoxious, but a lot of times I get vindicated later because the trolls were wrong.
It could be that I'm just fragile and don't like to read negative stuff. Hey, tell everybody how to find your podcast on a daily basis.
Well, Propaganda Report is my kind of overarching brand with my co-host Binkley, and we You can find that our daily show, 30 minutes every day of news of the day from a perspective of truth, liberty, and justice on any podcast feed. If you want to check out, we actually have a forum where we chit chat at thepropreport.com. You can find all our podcasts there. We do interviews, other stuff like that. And if you want to be a part of, well, if you want to get 15 minutes extra content every day or be a part of our super, super fun disappearing patron parties, go to patreon.com/propaganda report and join the fun there. You can chat with me there too.
I have a Patreon account too on duringthebreakpodcast.com. If anybody out there wants to give a little bit of money to somebody else that's trying to make a living doing what they love, feel free to visit that. And by the way, do you have time to read one more comment? Because we're doing this to get interaction. So I'll put it up.
Yeah, no, I want to.
You can go.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, it's on you.
David says government leaders, that is the president, the VP, Congress, Senate, state governors, and county senator mayors should have had to give up their salaries until the economy was open and 2 full months of increased GDP. I think that would have had a completely different experience if they suffered economically with the vast number of Americans. And you know what I would add to that, David? I would say while they were suspending our First Amendment rights, so therefore they suspended the Constitution, they should have suspended anything but short-term, well, I guess it is short-term, they should suspend any kind of national legislation. They should not be able to rack up $7 trillion worth of debt in a couple of months without us having our constitutional rights to hold the government to the restraints that are written on that piece of paper.
There you go. That's why I let you read it, because I knew you'd be able to go, bam.
I love it.
Get in
He's
there.
right.
All right. We're going to wrap it up.
Yes, thank you so much. Loved it. Thank you.
Here's our first Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time conversation. Our goal is to do this every Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, ma'am.
Yep, and we have to be punctual because they literally turn me into a pumpkin at
4
exactly
o'clock. 1 o'clock your time, 4 o'clock my time.
Yes, correct? It looks like my move might be permanent out here to California, but I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. Can't, whatever.
Well, thank you very much. And we will see you next week. And I'm sure we'll talk between now and next week. We'll do some research. And this Absolutely. Thing it'll get better and better. Before you know it,
I know.
We'll have big sponsors.
You have to get a rhythm. Sponsors. What are they? Oh, I actually have a great sponsor on my podcast, but
give them a shout out.
Oh, Neighbors Feed and Seed in Atlanta. Yeah. And it's not in Atlanta, it's in Smyrna, I think. Yeah, Smyrna. They have like heritage seeds. They're really doing a great business because they're helping people learn how to be food autonomous. You can call them or visit. We might even do like a live meetup there around the 4th of July because I wanted to do a 4th of July march on Washington, but I don't think that would really be able to coalesce. So I might do it in Atlanta, which is my home base. And then if people want to kind of piggyback on that in their own towns, we can kind of be like, okay, this is what the sign should say. This is where you should go at what time, post your videos and blah, blah, blah. But I think we're going to do it in Atlanta.
You know what you could do?
What?
Schedule it on a Saturday. Let's me and you come on, and then we can actually send invites of like 5 or 6 people that are out live doing the demonstration.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And bring them up.
This Saturday is the 4th of July.
Yeah.
4th of July is on a Saturday this year. So it would have to be on the 4th of July, which would be fine with me, but.
That's America, man. We're good.
America.
Bye, Monica Perez.
Bye. Bye,
Have
everybody.
a great day. See you, everybody.
You too.